On a cold winter morning in 1904, a child was born in the German city of Osnabrück. His features weren't distinguished by his calm features or even his long silences, but by the twinkle in his eyes whenever he picked up a pen or brush. His name was Felix Nussbaum, and no one imagined that this quiet child would one day become an artist who would paint the pain of an entire century. Chapter 1. Between Walls and Brushes. Felix grew up in a home filled with love and music. His father played the violin and believed in Germany, even after he fought for it in World War I. He wanted his son to be like him, a proud German. But Felix's heart was drawn to art, to colors that express what he couldn't express in words. At the age of 20, he enrolled at the Art Academy in Hamburg, where his soul dissolved into a sea of painting. He painted the faces of strangers in cafes, the walls of old cities, and the shadows that concealed stories on street corners. Soon, his name began to be mentioned in exhibitions, and his paintings began to speak, in a soft but profound voice, about humanity, about fear, and about lost dreams. Chapter 2. Escape into solitude. Then came 1933. The Nazis came to power, and darkness began to engulf the cities Felix painted. Slowly, his life turned into a grey canvas. As a Jew, he was expelled from the institute, barred from exhibitions, and suddenly became a stranger in his own homeland. He fled to Rome, then to Paris, and finally to Belgium, carrying a small suitcase, carefully wrapped paintings, and an unshakable anxiety. There, in the isolation of exile, his brush became a weapon. He no longer painted beauty, but harsh reality. In The Refugee, he painted himself huddled in the corner of a room, observing the world through a keyhole. In The Triumph of Death, skeletons danced on the ruins of civilization. Chapter 3. The pen writes the unspeakable. His final years were a struggle between light and darkness. He lived in Brussels in hiding, accompanied by his wife, Felix, who was also an artist and an exile. They had no homeland or safety, but they continued to paint. Painting was their only way to breathe, to bear witness, to rebel against oblivion. One night in 1944, there was a violent knock on the door. He wasn't a thief, nor a visitor, it was the end. The Nazi police arrested them, and Felix was taken to Auschwitz, where the brush fell silent, the colors were muted. But his silence there was an eternal scream to the world. Final chapter. The Breathing Museum. Felix's death wasn't the end of his story. After the war, his works were found hidden in Brussels. Paintings that bear witness to pain, but also a lesson in dignity. In his hometown, a museum bearing his name, the Felix Nussbaum Museum, was built with sharp angles and narrow passages, just as his life was. Anyone who visits the museum sees more than just paintings. They hear the story of a man who refused to be silenced and chose to paint. A man who realized that art, even in the face of death, could provide meaning and immortalize truth. Thus, with his paintings, Felix Nussbaum continues to walk among us, a refugee in history, but a resident of memory.